Dear students, Namaskar. I hope that all of you must be in sound health and must be continuing your studies with great zeal and enthusiasm. Children, today we are going to discuss Chapter 14 of Science of Class 9, Natural Resources. Before we start with the discussion of the chapter, let us recall what you already know. Our planet Earth is the only one on which life exists. Most life forms need ambient temperature, food and water to survive. The resources from the earth and the energy from the sun are necessary to meet the basic requirements of the life forms present on the earth. Now we will see what we shall learn today. What are the resources on the earth? The breath of life, air. The role of atmosphere in climate control. The movement of air, winds. Rain, air pollution. Water, a wonder liquid. Water pollution. Mineral riches in the soil. Biogeochemical cycles. Ozone layer. Resources on the earth. The land, the water and the air. The outer crust of the earth is called the lithosphere. Water covers 75% of the earth's surface. These comprise the hydrosphere. The air that covers the whole of the earth like a blanket is called the atmosphere. Living things are found where these three exist. This life-supporting zone of the earth where the atmosphere, the hydrosphere and the lithosphere interact and make life possible is known as the biosphere. The breath of life, air. It is interesting to note that even the composition of air is the result of life on Earth. In planets such as Venus and Mars, where no life is known to exist, the major component of the atmosphere is found to be carbon dioxide. Eukaryotic cells and many prokaryotic cells need oxygen to break down glucose molecules and get energy for their activities. Another process which results in the consumption of oxygen and the concomitant production of carbon dioxide is combustion. Carbon dioxide is fixed in two ways. Green plants convert carbon dioxide into glucose in the presence of sunlight. Many marine animals use carbonates dissolved in seawater to make their shells. The role of atmosphere in climate control. The atmosphere keeps the average temperature of the earth fairly steady during the day and even during the course of the whole year. The atmosphere prevents the sudden increase in temperature during the daylight hours, and during the night it slows down the escape of heat into outer space. The movement of air, winds. The atmosphere can be heated from below by the radiation that is reflected back or re-radiated by the land or water bodies. On being heated, convection currents are set up in the air. These convection currents produce land breeze and sea breeze. Land breeze and sea breeze. During the day, the land gets heated faster than the water. The air over the land becomes hotter and rises up. The cooler air from the sea rushes in towards the land to take its place. The warm air from the land moves towards the sea to complete the cycle. The air from the sea is called the sea breeze. At night, it is exactly the reverse. The water cools down more slowly than the land. So, the cool air from the land moves towards the sea. This is called the land breeze. Rain. Children, now let us know about water cycle. The water from water bodies like ponds, lakes, rivers and oceans change into water vapor due to heat of the sun. This process is called evaporation. Plants absorb water from soil through roots. Some part of this absorbed water is utilized by plants to prepare food by the process of photosynthesis, and rest of the water is lost to the atmosphere through stomata on leaves. This process is called transpiration. These vapor rise up in the air, and as these vapor go higher, they cool down to form tiny droplets of water. These tiny droplets cluster together and form clouds. This process is called condensation. Once the water droplets are formed, they grow bigger. When the drops have grown big and heavy, they fall down in the form of rain, snow, and hail. So children, due to evaporation and transpiration, water vapor go into the atmosphere. These vapors condense to form clouds, and water comes down to earth in the form of rain, hail and snow. This process is called water cycle. Rainfall patterns are decided by the prevailing wind patterns. In large parts of India, rains are mostly brought by the southwest or northeast monsoons. Air pollution. The increase in the content of harmful substances in the air is called air pollution. Causes of air pollution. The fossil fuels like coal and petroleum contain small amounts of nitrogen and sulfur. When these fuels are burnt, nitrogen and sulfur too are burnt, and this produces different oxides of nitrogen and sulfur, which causes air pollution. Increase in the number of factories is another reason for air pollution. Effects of air pollution. Presence of high levels of all these pollutants cause visibility to be lowered, especially in cold weather when water also condenses out of air. This is known as smog and is a visible indication of air pollution. These substances increase the incidence of allergies, cancer and heart diseases. Water, a wonder liquid. Water occupies a very large area of Earth's surface. Most of the water on Earth's surface is found in seas and oceans and is saline. Fresh water is found frozen in the ice caps at the two poles and on snow-covered mountains. The underground water and the water in rivers, lakes and ponds is also fresh. However, the availability of fresh water varies from place to place. Those states in India which will have maximum rainfall will have maximum biodiversity. But why is water so necessary? All cellular processes take place in a water medium. All the reactions that take place within our body and within the cells occur between substances that are dissolved in water. Hence, organisms need to maintain the level of water within their body in order to stay alive. Terrestrial life forms require fresh water for this because their bodies cannot tolerate or get rid of the high amounts of dissolved salts in saline water. Water pollution. The addition of undesirable substances in water bodies, removal of desirable substances, and change in temperature is called water pollution. Causes of water pollution. Water dissolves the fertilizers and pesticides that we use on our farms. Sewage from our towns and cities. The waste from factories are also dumped into rivers or lakes. Specific industries also use water for cooling in various operations and later return this hot water to water bodies. Effects of water pollution. The addition of undesirable substances to water bodies. These poisonous substances like mercury salts, which are used by paper industries, are added to water bodies. The removal of desirable substances from water bodies. Reduction in the amount of dissolved oxygen which affect aquatic organisms. A change in temperature. A sudden marked change in temperature would be dangerous for the aquatic organisms or affect their breeding. Mineral riches in soil. Soil is an important resource that decides the diversity of life in an area. The outermost layer of our earth is called the crust, and the minerals found in this layer supply a variety of nutrients to life forms. Soil also contains humus. But these minerals will not be available to the organisms if the minerals are bound up in huge rocks. How is soil produced? Over long periods of time, thousands and millions of years, the rocks at or near the surface of the earth are broken down by various physical, chemical, and some biological processes. The end product of this breaking down is the fine particles of soil. Sun, water, wind, and living organisms are the factors or processes that make soil. The sun. All parts of the rock do not expand and contract at the same rate on heating up by the sun. This results in the formation of cracks and ultimately the huge rocks break up into smaller pieces. Water. Water could get into the cracks in the rocks formed due to uneven heating by the sun. If this water later freezes, it would cause the cracks to widen. The lichens that we see which grow on the surface of rocks, while growing, they release certain substances that cause the rock surface to powder down and form a thin layer of soil. Flowing water wears away even hard rock, and the resultant abrasion causes the rocks to wear down into smaller and smaller particles. Wind. Strong winds also erode rocks down. The wind also carries sand from one place to the other like water does. Soil pollution. Removal of useful components from the soil and addition of other substances which adversely affect the fertility of the soil and kill the diversity of organisms that live in it is called soil pollution. Modern farming practices involve the use of large amounts of fertilizers and pesticides. Use of these substances over long periods of time can destroy the soil structure by killing the soil microorganisms that recycle nutrients in the soil. Soil erosion. The removal of top fertile layer of the soil is called soil erosion. The large-scale deforestation is the reason for soil erosion. Biogeochemical cycles. A constant interaction between the biotic and abiotic components of the biosphere makes biogeochemical cycles. Biogeochemical cycles are water cycle, nitrogen cycle, carbon cycle, and oxygen cycle. Carbon cycle. Carbon is found in various forms on the earth. In the combined state, it is found as carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. All life forms are based on carbon-containing molecules like proteins, carbohydrates, fats, nucleic acids and vitamins. Children, do you know that the amount of carbon in biosphere should be constant, and this is possible due to carbon cycle. Process of photosynthesis is performed in the presence of sunlight by all life forms that contain chlorophyll. This process converts carbon dioxide from the atmosphere or dissolved in water into glucose molecules. The utilization of glucose to provide energy to living things involves the process of respiration, in which oxygen may or may not be used to convert glucose back into carbon dioxide. The dead organisms are decomposed by bacteria and fungi, and carbon dioxide is released into the air. The dead organisms convert into fossil fuels over a long period of time. Burning of these fuels adds carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Fuels are burnt to provide energy for various needs like heating, cooking, transportation and industrial processes. Carbon is thus cycled repeatedly through different forms by the various physical and biological activities. The nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen gas makes up 78% of our atmosphere, and nitrogen is also a part of many molecules essential to life like proteins, DNA, RNA and some vitamins. Nitrogen is thus an essential nutrient for all life forms. However, life forms are not able to use nitrogen directly. The nitrogen-fixing bacteria may be free-living or be associated with some species of dicot plants. Most commonly, the nitrogen-fixing bacteria are found in the roots of leguminous plants such as pulses, in special structures called root nodules. By these bacteria, nitrogen molecule is converted to nitrates and nitrites. During lightning, the high temperatures and pressures created in the air convert nitrogen into oxides of nitrogen. These oxides dissolve in water to give nitric and nitrous acids and fall on land along with rain. These are then utilized by various life forms. Plants generally take up nitrates and nitrites and convert them into amino acids, which are used to make proteins. Once the animal or plant dies, other bacteria in the soil convert the various compounds of nitrogen back into nitrates and nitrites. A different type of bacteria converts the nitrates and nitrites into elemental nitrogen. This is called nitrification. Thus, there is a nitrogen cycle in nature in which nitrogen passes from its elemental form in the atmosphere into simple molecules in the soil and water, which get converted to more complex molecules in living beings and back again to the simple nitrogen molecule in the atmosphere. The greenhouse effect. Some gases trap heat rays and prevent them from escaping into the outer space from atmosphere. Increase in the amount of such gases in the atmosphere leads to increase in the global temperature. This trapping of heat rays in the atmosphere is called greenhouse effect. Carbon dioxide is one such greenhouse gas. Global warming. An increase in the carbon dioxide content in the atmosphere would cause more heat to be retained by the atmosphere and lead to global warming. The oxygen cycle. Children, now let us know about the oxygen cycle. Oxygen is found in the elemental form in the atmosphere to the extent of 21%. It is also an essential component of most biological molecules like carbohydrates, proteins, nucleic acids and fats. It also occurs in the air in the form of carbon dioxide. In the crust, it is found as the oxides of most metals and silicon. Plants and animals use oxygen from the atmosphere for respiration. Oxygen is also used for the combustion of fossil fuels. These are the processes through which oxygen is used up from the atmosphere. Now we shall see how oxygen is returned to the atmosphere. Oxygen is returned to the atmosphere by only one major process, that is photosynthesis, and this forms the broad outline of the oxygen cycle in nature. In this cycle, organisms take oxygen from the atmosphere and then release it back to the atmosphere. Ozone layer. In the upper reaches of the atmosphere, a molecule containing 3 atoms of oxygen is found. This would mean a formula of O3, and this is called ozone molecule. It absorbs harmful radiations from the sun. This prevents those harmful radiations from reaching the surface of the earth where they may damage many forms of life. Recently, it was discovered that this ozone layer was getting depleted. Various man-made compounds like chlorofluorocarbons were found to persist in the atmosphere. Once they reached the ozone layer, they react with the ozone molecules and resulted in a reduction of the ozone layer. And recently, they have discovered a hole in the ozone layer above the Antarctica. Recapitulation. Living organisms form the biotic components of biosphere. Water, air and soil are abiotic components of biosphere. Uneven heating of air over land and water bodies causes winds. Rainfall patterns depend on the prevailing wind patterns in an area. Nitrogen and sulfur oxides dissolve in rainwater and lead to acid rain. Life on earth depends on resources like soil, water and air and energy from the sun. Pollution of air, water and soil affect the quality of life and harm the biodiversity. Children, now I will ask a few questions and I hope that you all might be knowing the answers. My first question is, give any 2 methods to check air pollution. Air pollution can be reduced by planting more and more trees, installing certain devices in the chimneys which reduce the amount of smoke from industries. My next question, what is the effect of change of temperature on aquatic organisms? A sudden, marked change in the temperature would be dangerous for them and may affect their breeding. My next question is, what is the full form of CFC? The full form of CFC is chlorofluorocarbons. Now I will ask a few fill in the blanks. And the first fill in the blank is, water covers dash of the earth's surface. And the right answer is 75%. My next question, nitrogen gas is a part of dash, dash and dash molecules. And the answer is DNA, RNA and protein. My next question, Dash gas is necessary for the combustion of fuels. And the right answer is oxygen. My next question, where is fresh water present? Fresh water is found frozen in the ice caps at the two poles and on snow-covered mountains. The underground water and water in rivers, lakes and ponds is also fresh. Children, with this we complete our chapter, and I hope that all of you must have listened to the chapter carefully and understood it well. Children, keep learning, keep growing, stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.